Good morning. Today is Wednesday. It is, what is it? Yud Beis, Adar Aleph, Tafshin Dalet. We're in Teres Menachem Sefer HaMamorim, Tafshin Yud Aleph, Tafshin Yud Beis, in the Mamar Vayakhel Moshe, Tafshin Yud Beis. We are up to page Reish Mem Dalet Eis Dalet. The Rebbe is explaining here the gathering that Moshe gathered the Jewish people the day after Yom Kippur, and the purpose of that gathering, which was, as the Rebbe explained, to correct the Chet Ha'egel, to correct that which was brought about through the Chet Ha'egel, the sin of the golden calf, which was the return of that impurity that was brought down into the world originally at the Chet Eitzadas, which subsequently was removed when the Jewish people came to Mount Sinai, and subsequently returned when the Jewish people sinned the golden calf, and now it was necessary to correct that. And the correction is through a number of things, but mainly the main component of this correction is the idea of Shabbos Shabbosing, or the idea of working 6 days in a way of te'asa, that the work is almost done automatically on its own. And Rebbe explained at length that it's the idea of investing into mundane matters only yigia kapecha, the toil of your hands, but not your mind and your heart. In other words, that the person's main focus and main area of interest is Torah and mitzvahs and avodas Hashem. And in terms of doing the being involved in mundane matters, it is in a manner which one does not invest one's essence into it. So therefore one has this sense of tranquility during the week. Take asam alacha. The work is almost done on its own. And therefore one can come to Shabbos in a state of Shabbos Shabbosin, complete rest, because one has prepared to that before Shabbos. The Rebbe explained how, notwithstanding the fact that the person doesn't invest his essence into his material and mundane affairs, nevertheless it's called yigia kapecha, the toil of your hands. Why is it toil? It's toil because the person is not really interested in it. It's hard, it's difficult for him. He's waiting when can he already finish what he needs to do so that he can get on with what he really wants to do, and that is to serve Hashem. Chapter 4, page Reish Mem Daled. Now this idea was communicated the day after Yom Kippur, after Hashem had already said to Moshe, I have forgiven the Jewish people as you asked.
It's the first Yom Kippur, yes?
The first Yom Kippur after that's when Yom Kippur was set as the Day of Atonement, yes. So, the day after Yom Kippur, that's on which Hashem said, I forgave the Jewish people as you asked. Moshe Rabbeinu gathered the Jewish people, and he was communicating these ideas that we were just discussing. And that's when the correction for the sin of the golden calf began. What was the sin of the golden calf? Chet avodah zarah. It was the sin of idolatry. Similarly, during the time of exile in general, we need to correct the sin of idolatry, because the first temple was destroyed as a result of the Jewish people committing the sin of idolatry, as the Gemara says in Masechta Yuma. And concerning this, it says shatikun lozeh, that what is the correction for this sin of idolatry? Well, it is through the fact she'esek haparnasa, that one's involvement and preoccupation in matters of commerce and business and earning a living, yeh be'ofen should be performed in a manner the sheishes yomim te'osu malacha, that during the 6 days your work should be done b'derech mamela, in an automatic way. In other words, not to invest your essence into it. And the Rebbe goes on to explain this. Concerning the matter of idolatry, the Rambam explains how did idolatry become? How did idolatry come about? So, in the generation of Enosh, the people of his generation made a mistake. What was the mistake that they made? She'amru, the people of that generation said, Hoyel v'ha'elikim baruch echavim elu v'galgalim lahanigas olam. Since God created these stars and these spheres with which He conducts the world, chulu etc., ru'uyim hem l'shabcham u'lefaram v'lachlek lem kavod. They are fit to be praised, to be beautified, or another way of saying praise, and to give them honor. That's what they said, right? V'hainu. What does that mean? The divine flow, the divine energy that comes from Hashem to this world they are through intermediaries. Hashem communicates with the world. Hashem makes His presence known to the world. Hashem bestows His energy, provides His energy to the world through intermediaries. As it says in the verse in Parshas Bracha, Mimeged Tvois Shamish, the sweetness of grain comes from the sun, or Mimeged Geresh Yirachim, and the sweetness of barley comes from the moon. So we see that the stars, the planets, have an effect on physical phenomena. What is that? That's Hashem.
Yerachim, plural?
Sorry? Yerachim. Yerach is a moon.
What?
Moons. Sorry?
Plural.
Okay. It's different, different, I guess there are different produce that have different, that receive their ripening and their sweetening and so on and so forth from different stars and different moons. I mean, there are other planets that have moons, I believe, in astronomy. So, Hashem gives this hashpah, this flow, to the world through these intermediaries. That's the fact, right? Now, a Yida Maimin, somebody that believes, knows that it's just a means through which Hashem is acting. It's not that they're acting on their own behalf. That was the mistake of the generation of Enosh, where they considered them as having ability to, as it were, regulate this divine flow. And although they are only intermediaries, meaning to say they're a means through which Hashem bestows his energy into the world, nevertheless, this flow is channeled through them. And therefore, they made a mistake, the generation of Enosh. They bowed to the sun and to the moon. Why? They knew that it comes from Hashem, but they believed that they have some kind of ability to give more or to give less, and they wanted this flow to come in garments of nature. So therefore, they felt that by worshipping them, they will get more. V'hainu. The Rebbe explains this. Shagam heim hoidu. They also admitted Sha'akadosh Baruch Hu Melech Malchei Amlochim, that Hashem is the King of all kings. Aval koru le'el lakad lakaya. But they called him, they referred to Hashem as the God of gods, as the Gemara says at the end of Menachos. They considered these planets and these stars and these spheres as entities who have the ability, who have some ability to give more or give less. To give what more and what less? That divine energy which comes from Hashem, that hashpah that comes from Hashem, they considered as what? which Hashem said, that these flows come through the various planets and spheres. So they consider that these planets and spheres have an ability to have some role in how much or how little should be bestowed. But the truth is, they should not be considered as any existence at all. Why? Because they are merely like an axe in the hand of the one that uses it, that chops with it, that carves with it. And as the Tzemach Tzedek says in Derech Mitzvah Secha, just as everybody will understand that it's absolutely silly to worship the axe, the same exact way is to worship the sun and the moon. Move on. From this is understood. So, in other words, what's the bottom line? What is the anatomy of their sin, of their mistake? The anatomy of their mistake is that they gave importance to something other than Hashem. How does that translate into the theme that we're talking about over here? Working, ta'asa or te'asa. The pasuk says te'asa malacha. That when a person invests his mayach and his lev, his mind and his heart in his mundane endeavors, what is he saying? He's saying that his efforts and what he is doing has meaning, independent meaning, to achieve more or less of his parnasa or of his bracha. But the truth is, where does it come from? It comes from Hashem. So therefore, when a person works, sheishes yamim te'asa malacha, he has to work in a way that as if the work is happening on its own. He's doing it like the sun is transmitting Hashem's hashpah into the world. So his role is the same way. And just like the sun and the moon and the stars and the spheres have absolutely no say into how much or how little of it should come down into the world of Hashem's hashpah, so too the person has no say in it whatsoever. That's how the Rebbe transfers from this point to the pasuk that we're now discussing. From this it's understood that the concept of this sin of idolatry, at least in a finer form, that when one gives some importance to the garments and to the phenomena of nature, that is already what? That's already avodah zarah, idolatry, in a more fine form. How does one correct this? When one is occupied with one's business affairs, with one's means of earning a living, in a manner of te'asa b'derech memela, that he's involved in it in a way as if it happens automatically, which means what? Without the preoccupation of one's mind and one's heart. What does it mean, bowing? How does one? How do they worship the idols? How do they worship the sun and the moon? They bow to it. What does it mean? You bow to it. It signifies. It's the symbol. It's the physical symbol of giving your mind, your head, as it were, to that which you are worshiping. In the more finer sense, in the spiritual sense, inserting your head and your heart into the parnasa that you're involved in to such an extent that it preoccupies you. That's ishtachavo avodah zarah. So what's conversely the correction for that? What should you not do? You don't put your head and your heart into it. Which is the opposite of bowing, which is the bowing of the head. So what, in other words, when one does invest one's mind and one's heart in business affairs, in his affairs of earning a living, so one should not do that. This is the idea of idolatry, at least in a finer form. But how does one correct it? That you're involved in your parnasa in a way that is b'derech mela, automatic, and your role is merely there as the channel for the bracha of Hashem to come down. Chapter 5, So now you could think, okay, that this fine form of idolatry, which we need to be aware of and cautious of, is only something which could be found where? In physical parnasa. Says the Rebbe no, that even when one serves Hashem, one could serve Hashem with a small Avodah Zarah in one's heart, with a very fine sense of idolatry. How does that work? All the above is also to be found in the spiritual malacha, the spiritual work, which is what? Serving Hashem. What's the idea? We learn in Pirkei Avos, right in the beginning, chapter 1, don't be like servants who serve their master for the purpose of receiving a reward. Top of page Reish Mem Hey. But rather, you should be like servants who serve their master not for the sake of receiving a reward, but rather for what? For the purpose of serving the master. This means there could be a mode of serving Hashem for the purpose of receiving the reward. What does it mean, receiving the reward? We're not necessarily talking about what? Gan Eden, or the brachas, the physical brachas that the Eibishter is going to give, and so on and so forth, but rather, the person understands, knows and understands the goodness and the quality that there is within learning Torah and fulfillment of mitzvahs. And one feels hanoyam, the pleasantness, v'harevus, v'hamasikus, and the sweetness, b'Torah mitzvahs, in the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs. V'lochein oisek b'Torah mitzvahs. That's why he's occupied. That's why he fulfills Torah mitzvahs. That's why he's occupied with Torah mitzvahs. Achal ze omru, but it's concerning this which our sages say: Al tiyu ka'avodim amsham shemesarav al manas l'kavul pras. Do not be like servants who serve the master for the sake of receiving a reward. V'hainu, which means sha'avodas havayel amitasa, that serving Hashem in its truest sense, hilei mitzad hergesh hatoy v'atayin chulu, is not as a result of what? The feeling of goodness and pleasure that one can derive with spiritual good and pleasure, but yet the good and pleasure that one feels. But rather, avodas Hashem is to be performed out of a sense of duty, a sense of accepting the yoke of heaven. That he wants to fulfill Hashem's will. You remember we learned, it says in the Posik, Kirvas Elikim Litov. Why is one close to Hashem? Because it's Litov, because it's good for me, or because it's good, because of Hashem? It's talking about a very, very fine sense of self-feeling. When one serves Hashem out of a sense of duty, out of a sense of accepting the yoke, then one's avodas Hashem in the spiritual sense, the spiritual avodas Hashem, is in a mode of te'asa b'derech mela, as if it happens on its own. And on the other hand, at the same time, it's ube'evin shel yigiyah, and in the mode of toil, working hard. If you remember, the Rebbe spoke about the two extremes, that it's called yigiyah, kapecha, the toil, but on the other hand, it's done in the form of what? B'derech mela, almost in an automatic way. Where do you find the two extremes behind you? Since he's serving Hashem not because he's drawn to it, because of his desire and his pleasure, but rather out of a sense of duty, because of his acceptance of the yoke of heaven. And he's performing it in a way as if he has no pleasure in it, but rather as if he's being compelled to do so. That's why this mode of Avodas Hashem is called Yigiyah, toil. Why? Because he does it out of a sense of duty. But at the same time, it's as if the work is being done on its own. The service of Hashem is on its own. Why? When you serve Hashem out of a sense of feeling, it's possible that the person should feel that it's my strength and the abilities of my hand that have allowed me to arrive at this level of avodas Hashem. Because I have such good talents and such good ethics. Therefore, that's why I'm giving what? I'm learning Torah and I'm giving tzedakah. But when one serves Hashem, not because of his feeling, but rather what? Because of a sense of acceptance of yoke of heaven, then he feels and he understands and feels that this is not his avodah. But rather everything that is being accomplished is only with what? With the help of Hashem. And to the extent that even though he has a role, but Hashem's help in helping the person in his Avodas Hashem is the main component in his achievements. K'maymer Azal, as our sages say, all that Hashem is asking from us is that we should open up ourselves to Him like the width, like the opening of a pinprick. And I, Hashem says, will open up for you inspiration, etc., as wide as the doors of a great big hall. Person understands and feels that his action is merely like the opening of a pinprick. And then everything is accomplished automatically on its own through the fact that he's being helped from above. So this is the idea of te'osa in the spiritual sense, with the two extremities, yigia on the one hand, toil, and on the other hand, b'derech hamela, as if it's being performed on its own without the person's involvement. More with this tomorrow.